Hello and welcome to another episode of Set Musings. There's a lot going on in this episode, but before we get on to the actual episode itself, I'll just talk a little bit about what's coming out this week. So Monday we've got the Set Musings episode. It gets released pretty much straight away after I record it. Thursday we have an episode of the newly christened Commander Durdle. That comes out on a Thursday. And then the weekend I've got a video about a non-Magic the Gathering deck. So hopefully you'll be interested in that content, and that's recorded actually on camera. That's a physical look at a certain type of deck. So I'll be interested to see what you think of that sort of video. Like I said, it's not Magic the Gathering product, but it is a deck of sorts. Also, for any of you that check out my musical podcast, had a new episode go out this morning. That's on Spotify, and that's the podcast as a whole is referred to Music the Obsession. And I've got an ongoing series at the moment, but that's going to change in the next 2 or 3 weeks, and I'm going to move over to a series more about my favourite albums and also new release albums as well. So the idea there is to alternate between recently released albums, say in the last 6 months, as up to date as I can get it, and then alternate each week between that and older albums that I've come to love over time, and also looking at the sort of my musical, I suppose, zeitgeist around those particular albums. So hopefully you're going to find it interesting, anybody that's checking out those episodes. And if you haven't already and you have Spotify, please, if you have some time, just check out one of the episodes and see whether you like it or not. If you don't, then great. You can just ignore it, but if you do, then I'd heartily welcome you as a new listener. So those come out early Monday morning, pretty early in North America, because I have another number of people that listen in Europe, so I tend to put it out first thing on Monday morning, so they can listen to it in their particular time zone. So anyway, that's in terms of what I'm currently working on this week and is going out. So let's go back to the Set Musings. Interesting set. We're onto the time spiral block. You can see there's a lot going on, and you can judge that by the tabs. So I don't know if I've ever gone through this in much detail. I think I've alluded to how I break these down. So the tabs basically fall into 4 categories. One is slices through in terms of themes, mechanics, keywords, abilities, those sort of things. So how the set looks up when you dice it up like that. And so there's a number of tabs that fall into that category. With this particular set, a lot more than normal. Often when I put these sets musings out, there may only be about 4 or 5 tabs. Yeah, it's 10 plus tabs just dedicated to that sort of category. Then we move on to the cycles, and a lot of cycles in this set. So slice it through by cycles, and because of the nature of the sheer amount of keywords and abilities, you'll notice that there is a good degree of direct matchup between a couple of the cycles and a couple of the keywords and abilities, just because there were so many. If they decided to create a cycle around that keyword or ability, they used all the cards up that were just there because purely of that keyword and ability, and you'll see those. So yeah, slicing through by cycles is a second category of tabs here. The third category is slicing through by card type, and that really doesn't change in terms of the amount, because I normally look at legendaries, lands, creatures, enchantments and non-aura enchantments, or enchantments, sorceries and instants, and if there is any in the set, basic lands. Excuse me. Just need to. So yeah, those sort of things, and artifacts, if I haven't mentioned that already. So that doesn't really change much, but it'll be interesting in this set. There is something missing, and you'll see when I get to it what that is. And then the fourth category, which tends to be the smallest, is just me looking at the set as a whole in terms of just the overall look and feel of the set from a helicopter view, and then looking at the prices of cards in the set and looking at its popularity on EDH Rec. And that's basically how I break these tabs down. And then at the end of this video, we'll obviously have a user look. I think I forgot in Cold Snap, I'm going to take a look at obviously the theme decks, because there's some pretty important stuff in this set. And also I'll talk a little bit about what the card pool looks like for the upcoming Commander Durdle episode, and the actual commander that I'm going to go with, that I chose. So lots to think about in this set and in this episode. The other thing is this, and you'll see it in a moment. I'm going to scroll through these first of all, and while I do, I'll go through in terms of the themes, mechanics, keywords, abilities, to what to look out for as we move through this. So in the set we have time shifted cards, which you'll see in a moment, rebels, slivers, spell shapers, thalids were in the set. In terms of the keywords ability side of things, we've got buyback, echo, flanking, flash, flashback, madness, morph, shadow, split second, storm, and suspend. So yeah, I pity the new player that was introduced to Magic through this. Their mind must have just been completely boggled. You can see also there's going to be a number of reprints in here. First set of the block, large set. I don't always mention this because I tend to forget, but this came out October the 6th, 2006. That was the actual release date. 301 cards, 121 commons, 80 uncommons, 80 rares, and the best bit, 20 basic lands. There was also 121 time shifted cards, and for the purposes of Scryfall, and I believe the set generally, they're actually sort of listed separately, and they have their own expansion code as well. When we get to the smaller sets, you'll see there were time shifted cards, but how they were split down seems to have been done slightly differently. And I suspect with this it was because of the nature of the time shifted cards that they used here. But at the moment we're looking at the regular cards, and you can see again we do have a good degree of consistency in the artwork. And artwork is important in this set, and you'll see why in a moment. Also, you'll notice, and this is why it's such a fun set to look at, is there's a lot of classic stuff in here. Maybe that's not the right word I'm looking for, like notable cards. Academy Ruins, Astral Visions, Ancient Grudge, Dread Return, Empty the Warrens, Gemstone Caverns. The list goes on. I'll include the link to the MTG wiki if you want to see the full list. Tormont's Crypt is in here. Smallpox. And when we slice through the different card types, we'll look at the sort of ways that those classic effects were manifesting themselves in instants and sorceries and such like. you can see the rules text looks pretty busy here. And you'll see why when we start to really go through this. Got a number of things here, and actually I've got ahead of myself. In terms of card types, I don't think anything is actually missing in this set. I made the mistake here of prepping up for the next set as well, and I'm thinking of that actually, but in this set I don't believe, I'm going to take that back, there is anything type wise that is different. It's going to be the following set on. It's going to be Planar Chaos, where you'll notice something is amiss if you're not already familiar with the set. So with this we just have to contend with the sheer amount of different ways of looking at this set. Okay, so there we have that. So let's look at the time shifted cards. So these were in a particular slot in the set. I have opened booster packs of these and also tournament decks as well on camera. So I would try and track those down on the channel. I'll try and remember to include a link to that as well. So you can see that if you're curious. There was a fancy Time Spiral promo clock as well that ran backwards. So these things. 121 is a subset entirely of pre-Mirrodin reprints, and the time shifted theme in this set was the past. The theme of the time shifted cards changes for each set in the block. Also, you'll notice each card in the subset features the old 7th edition card frame and has a purple expansion symbol to denote their unique rarity. One time shifted cards appears in every Time Spiral booster pack, making the cards roughly 50% as a rare card. Obviously rares still appear, one per pack. And at the time, they were treated as part of the Time Spiral block, these time-shifted cards. So legal in any format that uses Time Spirals cards at that point. So you can see we've got things like a Chroma, Celestial Dawn, or a Tog. And again, because this is what I was pointing out with the other cards, because these are pre-Mirrodin, I nearly said 7th edition, pre-Mirrodin cards, you can see the artwork is quite different. Got Dandan in here. Ghost Ship, Lord of Atlantis. And some legendaries as well. We've got, well, where was it? Yeah, Ghost Ship. Oh, sorry, Pirate Ship, not Ghost. Did I say Ghost Ship? What did I mean? Pirate Ship. I'm not sure whether it was just one legend per colour, but we'll see when we go through. Look at the legends as a whole. In fact, if I don't remember, I'll remind myself to do that just in case I forgot to slice this up. In fact, let us do that now while we're still in here. I can do this on the fly. So I probably did this anyway. It might explain why there's so many. But let me just check. Anyway, I'll do it now so you can see. So out of those 121 cards, we had 12 legendaries, of which there are a couple that weren't creatures. We've got a legendary artifact and a legendary land, Pendlehaven, in here. But as I've said, these are all reprints. We've got a Nicol Bolas. So 10 artifacts out of the 121. There's our Tormund's Crypt. Five lands, including Arena, Gemstone Mine, Desert, Pendlehaven, Safe Haven. Nine instants. It's Darkness, Disenchant. "12 sorceries, including these split cards as well, which are in here. Got Void in here. And look at the enchantments. 11 enchantments, including Bad Moon, Stable Mutation, or Enchantment Aura. Tarifi's Moat is in here, Stormbind. So there we have it. That's just ad hoc slicing through of the special time-shifted time spiral cards. So let's look now at some of the ways the set looks from the point of view of scenes, mechanics, and then keywords and abilities. So we have 7 rebels in the set. Rebels were a thing. And you can see one of them had that you know, where it tutored for rebel. I think they called it recruiter, didn't they? A recruitment mechanic. And we had 26 slivers. So slivers were heavily represented in the set, including multicoloured slivers. And you'll see as well the cycles within this. So number of cycles of slivers. And we've got spell shapers, and you're probably going to spot there's a few enough there where there will, yeah, we'll see a cycle of within those. We have Thalids. Five of those. So there were 6 of the spell shapers, 5 of the Thalids, 7 cards with buyback. So now we're on to keywords and abilities. So with buyback, so buyback 2 and 2 white on this card, for instance. You may pay an additional 2 and 2 white as you play this spell. If you do, put this card into your hand as it resolves. And you can see there are alternatives to costs here in some cases. This one's sacrificing 3 islands for the buyback cost. and this one here discarding 2 cards. Oh, that happens sometimes. So moving on now to Echo. So Echo 2 and a red at the beginning of your upkeep. If this came under your control since the beginning of your last upkeep, sacrifice it unless you pay its Echo cost. And you can see that's the same on all the cards. Except here where it's mentioned, it says you may pay 0 rather than pay the Echo cost for permanents you control. So that one cares about Echo. Flanking was a thing in this set. So flanking, whenever a creature without flanking blocks this creature, the blocking creature gets -1/-1 until end of turn. And then also here, in the case of the Sliver, all Slivers has flanking. And again with these things we're looking at, you'll notice that we've seen a number of these before, a number of these keywords abilities in previous sets that we've looked at. We've got Flash, where you may play this spell anytime you could play an instant. So in amongst those mechanics and themes that have appeared in past expansions, you'll probably notice some newer stuff. And one of them is Flash. Well, actually, sorry. The thing here, I misspoke. Flash is now keyworded. So this was the first, from my understanding, this was the first appearance of this ability being keyworded. Then we have Flashback, which we've seen before. So with Flashback, there's a cost needed here. So on this one, 5 and a white, you may play this card from your graveyard for its Flashback cost and any additional cost, then remove it from the game. And you can see there's quite a big difference from the original casting cost that you would have used to play this. Also, here you've got a card that plays with the Flashback mechanic. So it can target instants or sorceries and give them Flashback. Madness. Another returning thing in this set. If you discard this card, you may play it for its madness cost instead of putting it into your graveyard. Morph. So with Morph, if you can choose to play the card face down as a 2/2 creature for 3 instead of playing its casting cost. If you do this, then you can turn it up face up at any time for its morph cost. Another returning thing. Oh, I've got oh, I was trying to work out this because it's got Terramorphic in the name, so that's why that's come up. That is not a morph card. I didn't spot that. Although interesting, I'm trying to remember, was that the first set that it was printed in this set? I don't know if these are always in order. Interesting. I think it might have been. Yeah. Yeah, I think I'm pretty sure about that. That was the first time it was printed. Not that that has anything to do with Morph, but seeing as it was there accidentally, it was worth taking a look at. Then we've got here, we've got Shadow. So this creature can block or be blocked by only creatures with Shadow. Another returning thing in this set. Split Second's a new one. So with Split Second, as long as the spell is on the stack, this spell, players can't play spells or activated abilities that aren't mana abilities. So it freezes time, I suppose. Croson Grip. Again, an accidental inclusion. So yes, the infamous Storm. It is a returning mechanic. When you play this spell, copy it for each spell played before it this turn. So you can see in here it's only in red. This accidentally got included because I wasn't paying attention when I did the slicing, because it's got Storm in here. So. Suspend. So this was new. So Suspend, I suppose again, thinking about it, it's sort of sending a spell into the future by paying a reduced cost and waiting a number of turns before casting it for free. And some cards had other ways to reduce the time taken before they were played. So if you look here, you can see so we've got the casting cost. We have this Suspend and then a cost. So the number here refers to the number of counters, like how long it's going to take before the spell actually gets cast for free. And then after it is the actual Suspend cost. So with this one, if you wanted to choose to suspend it, you pay 1 and a white, and then you suspend it for 5, which means basically you remove it from the game, you put 5 time counters on it, and at the beginning of your upkeep you remove a time counter. When you remove the last, then you play it without paying its mana cost. And you can see here there's a number of cards have quite different suspend values and a cost, or interact with Suspend in some way to reduce maybe that count, and so reduce the time taken before you can actually cast it. Some have incredibly high casting costs, but you can obviously cast it for its casting cost if indeed it does have one. And you'll notice here, Lotus Bloom, there is no casting cost on it. So you can only choose to suspend it. I'm assuming there are ways of cheating that into play beyond just removing time counters. Okay, so moving on to the cycles. The first cycle is a cycle of suspend spells. If we ignore Lotus Bloom, there was a cycle of rare suspend spells with no mana cost. And the effect was a powerful spell from Magic's past. So Restore Balance was balance, Ancestral Vision was ancestral recall, Living End was living death, Wheel of Fate was Wheel of Fortune, and Hypergenesis was Eureka. Lotus Bloom, if you like, is the 6th card of the cycle, colourless card, and it emulates Black Lotus. Cycle within buyback are basically, there's a cycle of rare buyback spells. Interestingly, you've got Flash combined with auras. So there's a cycle of those, subset of the Flash grouping. That are enchantment auras. Also, flashback spells here. Got so many tabs open. What we have here is allied colour flashback spells. And I have made a mistake here. Got it slightly around the wrong way. There we go. That's better. So white to cast, blue to flashback, blue to cast, black to flashback, black to cast, red in the flashback, red in the cast, green in the flashback, and green in the casting, and white in the flashback. So that's what allied coloured flashback spells. They're all common, they're all instants. Cycle of rare split second spells. So rare instance with split second. Cycle of uncommon split second cards. We've got a cycle of one. Hang on, let me just check this. Yeah, so suspend creatures where the suspend cost is 1 mana. And again, I think I've made a bit of a mistake here. should be Dirkwood Baloth. Let me just... There we go. This is the problem when you have all these slicing and dicing. I have to up my quality control. So, yeah, so common creatures with a suspend cost of a single colour, the appropriate colour. Cycle of common spell shapers. And their activated abilities resemble a common card from Magic's past. Cycle of Magi, Magus of the Disc, Magus of the Jar, Magus of the Mirror, Magus of the Scroll, Magus of the Candelabra. And these are rare human wizards. And you'll notice that they echo abilities of a powerful artifact from Magic's past. So Magus of the Disc is Nevin Arl's Disc. Magus of the Jar, Memory Jar. Magus of the Mirror, Mirror Universe. Magus of the Scroll, Curse Scroll. And Magus of the Candelabra, Candelabra of Tornos. I believe the converted mana cost is, the overall converted mana cost is the same as those particular spells, those powerful artifacts. Cycle of totems. So uncommon artifacts with tap, add, mana, and an activated ability to turn the card into a creature on the reserve list with the cost of the creature's mana cost. So Thunder Totem, Thunder Spirit, Chronotog Totem, Chronotog, Phyrexian Totem, Phyrexian Negotiator, Pharisian Totem, I think that is, Two-Headed Giant of Forest, and Weatherseed Totem, Weatherseed Treefolk. If you've played Magic for a long time, you're probably aware of Rancor. So it had a cycle of Rancor-like effects. So what happens is these are uncommon auras, and they grant the enchanted creature an ability, and have, when the particular card, the aura, is put into the graveyard, then it goes back to its owner's hand, and Rancor did that. And they all do it. Cycle of Morph creatures. They're rare. And again, theme of the set, we've seen this on other ones, they allude to cards from Magic's past. And I'm sure you recognise this one. Okay, so we've got a cycle of main phase matters instance. So uncommon instance with improved effects that when cast during their owner's main phases. So let's look at Return to Dust. So remove target artifact or enchantment from the game. If you played this spell during your main phase, you may remove up to one other targeted artifact or enchantment from the game. And you can see the same is true in terms of enhancing the effect for all of the other cards. This one does card draw, this one does discard, this one does damage, and this one is pump. And they're correspondingly all improved through use in the main phase. So storage lands. So you can tap them for colourless mana. For 1 mana of any colour, you can tap them and put a storage counter on them. And for a cost of 1 mana of any colour, you can remove X storage counters from calciform pools and then add X mana in any combination of white and or blue to your mana pool. And obviously that colour combination is allied colours. Cycle of 2 colour legendary creatures in the set. Rare legendary creatures with mana costs that include MN, where M and N are allied colours of mana. And each of these legendary creatures represents characters from Dominaria's past. So the Sliver Cycles, there's a cycle of common slivers, and remember at this point slivers gave all slivers their ability, not just your slivers. They were still doing that at this point in Magic's time. If you remember later, in a later Magic set, slivers were one-sided, whereas these are across the board. So they're common and they're 1/1. There's another cycle of common slivers as well, and yeah, I had fun slicing this up actually here, and I can see I've made a mistake again. Dear me. There we go, that's better. So yeah, two common cycles of slivers, one which were 1/1, the others which were not necessarily 1/1. Yeah, that's the odd one out. It's funny they didn't make them a cycle of 2/2s actually. Not quite sure why that happened. Uncommon monocoloured slivers, cycle of those. Cycle of rare slivers, but also in addition to being rare, they had the abilities of a rare creature from Magic's past. And then there were also a cycle of uncommon multicoloured slivers. So, moving on through that lot, so you can see there's a lot of stuff there. Let's look at the, slicing through different types of cards now. So we've got 20 legendaries in the set, the vast majority of which are creatures, but as you'll see down here, we do have 4 legendary lands as well. Some of these legendaries are monocolour, some are multicolour. There is also a 5-colour dragon in here as well, Sign of the Ur-Dragon. And as I mentioned, there is a cycle of 2-coloured legendaries. So in addition to that, we've got the mono colours, we've got the 3 colour, and we've got the 5 colour. Here's our basic land, most important part of the episode, and very nice artwork, I think, anyway. Quite gnarly, actually, when you look at it. You know, some of this stuff would not look out of place on as swamp artwork. It's like 5 colour swamps. Here's all our non-basic lands. In addition to the cycle here that we've got of these storage lands, we've got a number of lands which have interesting utility on them. So we've got Academy Ruins, which messes around with artifacts. Put target artifact in your graveyard on top of your library. We've got Flagstones of Trokia, which generates white mana, and when it's put into a graveyard from play, you may search your library for a Plains card, put that into play tapped. Interestingly, we don't see a cycle of anything in these. We've got Gemstone Caverns, cared about if it was in your opening hand, and if it was, so you put a luck counter on it. If you do, remove a card in your hand from the game, and if it does have a luck counter on it, you can tap it for mana of any colour. If it doesn't, then it's just colourless mana. Keep can spit out cobbles. Swarm Yard can regenerate insects, rats, spiders or squirrels. Vesuva comes into play as a copy of a land already in play. And we've got the storage lands, which you've already seen. We've got Urza's Factory in here, which can spit out 2/2 assembly worker artifact creatures, but for quite a high cost there. Also generates colourless mana, and then also Terramorphic Expanse, which we've seen already, where you search your library for a basic land card, put it into play tapped, then shuffle your library. So 165 creatures. One enchantment that's not an aura, which is Opal Guardian, but we do have 16 auras, so heavy aura set, heavy creature enchantment, relatively speaking, when you compare it to the fact there's only one other non-creature enchantment. 14 artifacts. We've got the totems, we've got the Candles of Leng, Chromatic Star. You can see there's a degree of mana fixing. And filtering. And looking at the cards you've seen, you can see why they would want to improve the ability to play multicolored cards. I just wanted to highlight there was within artifacts we had some artifact creatures. We have an Assembly Worker, Brass Gnat, Clockwork Hydra, Jorah's Time Bug, Stuffy Doll, Triskelivus, and Venser's Sliver. And some of these, again, you can sort of, if you're familiar with older Magic sets, you go, well, actually, I recognise, you know, similarities between that and other old school Magic cards. 40 instants, some of which have split second on them. And as you can see here, mess with the game, albeit for one turn. We've got counterspell in blue here. Artifact and enchantment destruction. We've got self bounce in white. Number of interesting sort of manipulation spells in blue as well. Got tutoring, card draw, library shenanigans, bounce. There's our target non-black creature destruction. Pretty high cost there. Has madness though. Got strangling soot. Got tendrils of corruption in here as well. And moving to, let's have a look, instant speed, red damage. So we've got lightning axe. You can see what that's sort of alluding to. And there's our... See, interestingly, we've got card draw on that as well. So it's interesting how they split that up as well. You've got 2 damage to target creature or player and 3 damage to you for 1 and 2 red. And you get to draw a card. Reiterates a recopying of instants and sorceries. Sudden shock, that's our 2 damage shock spell, but it's for 2 here. Sulphurous blast, like global damage. So I'll gain control spell in red. So we've got some damage prevention in green. We have artifact destruction, pump, more target artifact or enchantment, but specific to a certain mana cost. Tokens, X damage to flying creatures, pump, scalable pump based on the number of attacking creatures, and asymmetrical pump with flashback in an allied colour. So quite a lot going on in instants. Sorceries, so what are we looking for? Do we have the usual? So that's interesting. Got land rebalancing. Some of these were part of that cycle, if you remember, that hark back to older Magic cards. There's our sorcery speed removal. Actually, exiles creature. Interesting. Gain control of target creature of an opponent's choice that he or she controls. Gain 2 life. So we don't seem to have mass removal in white. There's our card draw. Bounce. Messing with turns. Destroying a tapped creature. It's something you see in white actually. Here it's in black. Although, well, actually I say tapped. Normally it's like blocking or attacking actually more correctly. But yeah. Graveyard stuff. Sacrifice. tutoring, more graveyard shenanigans. Oh, yeah, living end. Discard, creature destruction, conditional. What? And also life, sorry. Wow, it's quite a bit of removal in black here. And some tuck as well. Sort of hand tuck. Yeah, it's an interesting set actually. Choose one life. Oh, to the Warrens. Grape shot, yeah. There's Rift Bolt in here as well. Land Destruction. Oh, of course, Wheel of Fortune. But with Suspend. Epigenesis. What do we got here? Land Destruction. Basic Land. Tutoring. Trample. Pump. And a token. So unless I've missed it. Oh, hang on. Was it because there was mass removal in... Maybe not. I'm just wondering how much some of the stuff in here impact their card choices within here. Okay. Right, so we're back to the set again as a whole. I'll include links to the set because it is super complicated, and in my head I'm already starting to think of things like, you know, how did they balance the set differently based on the fact they knew they were going to include these time shifted cards, or didn't it factor quite so much because effectively you have a slot where it's almost like having a rare card, so from a draft perspective it's not going to have a massive difference. I'm not sure, but I'm sure there's a ton of there's a ton of notes on the MTG wiki article, so I'll include that. Unfortunately, I just don't have time to go through and like read all the articles, so that's why I'm sometimes, or a lot of the time, just slightly unsure as to how this pans out when you start opening packs to play, either as a draft experience or as a seal port. I don't think I'd fancy doing this just straight seal. It must have been fun, if that's the right word, at the pre-release. Wow. Did everybody just play Slivers? Anybody that attended the pre-release, let me know what went down. Yeah. Okay. Expensive cards. So let's go in and have a look. Gemstone Caverns. Well, $28. Oh, actually, my mistake. That's better. Paradox Haze. Okay. Oh yeah, additional. Okay. Yeah. Wow, that's a big price drop. $11. For some reason, and I don't know why, I always thought Vesuva was much more expensive. It's interesting. It must have, maybe because it made this Time Spiral remastered set, which was printed in paper. Yeah, I don't know why. I just thought this was quite an expensive card in paper. Academy Ruins. Oh yeah, so we're well below. So yeah, 2 cards in, and we've dropped below that. I'll go back to the other cards actually from the time shifted cards, and we'll have a look at that. Actually, I hadn't necessarily planned to do that. Surprise, surprise. Terramorphic Expanse, well, according to Time EDH Rec, the one that features in most decks, or most amount of Commander decks, and yeah, I pretty much go along with that. Let's have a quick look and just see what percentage here. Their database, 21%. Crows and Grip, yeah, usual suspects here. Return to Dust, Gemstone Caverns, Prismatic Lens, Academy Ruins, got Dread Return, Search for Tomorrow, Vesuva's in here. Angel's Grace, Grape Shot, Cancel, yep. And there's Kirkeep. Now that's in a deck, isn't it, with a particular dragon. I should know this. That was in the Commander product, I think. Yeah, Prosh. That was it. You're spitting them out so you can sack them to Prosh as well. Okay. How many times was that reprinted then? Oh, it's in the Commander 2013. So that was the second, because the original Commander deck went out in 2011. They skipped a year because they put out that Commander's Arsenal, I think it was called. And then they went to 2013. So this was the second iteration of the Commander products that came out yearly where they were releasing decks. Oh, Endrick, Sark Master Breeder, and so on. Right, let us take a quick look here and re-sort this. So here's our stuff. Let's sort it by dollar. Oh, how expensive is Darkness? Of course it was. Yeah, it's only ever been in Legends. So yeah, looks like the time shifted cards were the more expensive ones. Oh no, that only ever appeared in Legions, that Sliver. It's Gemstone Mine. Yeah, now we're below $10. So yep. So slightly more cards in the time shifted. Not by much though. That are above the $10 mark. That was a gift card. So that was mainly printed in the core sets by the look of things. Did crop up in the Time Spiral set. Glad they kept with the sort of classic artwork for the time shifted actually. 7th edition is slightly different. Okay, I think I better stop there. I could start doing sub slicing here because of just the sheer amount of stuff going on in this set. So yeah, hop onto Scryfall and have fun yourself. Wow, just blows my mind how complicated this set was. So theme decks that went with it. Fun with Fungus. I wonder if I have any of these decks. I should check and see if I've physically got any of these decks. I would have already done unboxings for these, but I thought I had one Time Spiral deck. I'm not sure though. Hope's Crusaders. So sorry, I'll do this properly. Getting excited there. Fun with Fungus. What's that? Green Black. Felon Havenwood is in this. Verdant Embrace. What they did with this as well, normally with theme decks at this point you were getting 2 rares, but what they did, because of the time shifted stuff, they also included time shifted cards, so 2 time shifted cards in the deck as well. So exactly that you're messing with fungi. Hope's Crusaders, mono white. Flanking. Okay, fair enough. So we've got Pentart Paladin, Sarpedane Empires, Catian Javeliers, and Zolfin Commander from the set and the time shifted cards respectively. Reality Factor, blue red. Oh look, there's a dragon. Deep Sea Kraken and Pardic Dragon were the rares. Claws of Grit. Oh, actually, there's a lot more time shifted cards in here. Claws of Grix, Giant Oysters, Serrated Arrows. I keep forgetting that was in the time shifted cards. Whispers of the Muse. Did they all have? Well, it had Pendelhaven in it. Okay, so. And then finally, Sliver Evolution. It's got Fungus Sliver in it, Pulmonic Sliver, Avoid Fate, Gemstone Mine, and Spine Slivers are the time-shifted cards. And you can tell from its name what it actually does. Fun with Slivers. That Reality Fracture, what was the... Was that some sort of blue-red? Oh, Suspend and Storm. Okay. You're messing with the time stream apparently. Up to the Warrens. And then with this, I'll remember to include the link now. I'm sort of slightly changed the format of the episodes. I'll include the link to this. It's always cool to see what they proposed adding as well. That's always interesting. You know, to basically change up the deck. Because of course, remember, Tempest, Stronghold and Legions had slivers in it. Now, of course, a lot of these additions as well aren't necessarily going to make the deck standard legal anymore. Or at the time, because not now, but I meant back then. So, yeah. Maybe I don't have any of these. I know I've looked at the Fun with Fungus deck before. With a thought to purchasing it. I'll see if I do notice. I'll try and do. Although I've missed the slot slightly, but never mind. I'm just going to see out of curiosity whether I have that deck, and maybe do something interesting in the future with it. Certainly, if I do have it and I did an unboxing, I'll at the very least, I'll include a link in the descriptions for that. So. Then we've got, in terms of what's coming out this week, Thursday we have our Commander Durdle episode. So this is the card pool, 180 cards from Time Spiral. Obviously because it's from Virtual Boosters, in there is going to be included with, 12 packs this is. There'll be 12 of the time-shifted cards. Although, when I pull in the card pools, I don't worry too much necessarily about... well, this one I have actually. I was going to say I don't often worry too much about making sure they're the right printing, but I clearly have done it here. So yeah, within the pool there was Mistform Ultimus, so that's where I'm going with that. So you'll see that in the episode, the way I developed that. I always make a copy of the deck just in case I mess up, and then I can go back fairly easily. And then finally, I also pulled out like an aggregate deck from EDH Rec, you know, what do they call it? The average deck based around Mistform Ultimus. And I'll talk a little bit about, you know, how that differs from what ultimately Arcadex suggested as we went along with this. Once I've seeded this correctly, so I need to pull out from here obviously all the cards that are not on colour for, you know, on colour for Mistform Ultimus, but I'll do that actually in the episode. Yeah, and then like I've also mentioned, I've got a episode of my podcast coming out, so I'm going to switch over in that. Over the next few weeks we'll get the tail end of the current format for the episode I'm doing. The episode goes out early on a Monday morning for the benefit of my sort of European viewers, just because of time zones and stuff like that. And once I've exhausted the list for my next couple of episodes, I'm then going to go over one that's more album centric. And so I'm going to start off with a new album that's been released in the next, or has been released in the last couple of months, and talk a bit about the album and talk a bit about what was also around at the time the album came out, and the time if there were any singles released before the album came out, what was around then, a sort of zeitgeisty type episode. And then that's going to be followed by a classic album, or an album that I like from bygone era, and then I'll alternate each week in my podcast between current albums that have gone out in, say, the last 6 months, and then ones that have been out mainly, I suppose, in my lifetime, and ones that I've listened to a lot, and that will just alternate. So yeah, like I think I said at the top of the show, if you haven't done already, and you've got time, then yeah, check out my podcast on Spotify. It's called Music the Obsession, and there is a number of series there. The first series was more about my, what I listened to, or focused in on stuff that I've listened to over my lifetime. The second series was more about random songs that I'd like throughout that time period that I didn't feature in the original series. And then the third series, which is upcoming in the next, I think about 3 weeks from now, is going to be on queuing around certain either recent albums or classic albums. So that's it for this episode. Thanks for watching this episode of Set Musings. I'll see you in the next episode. Bye for now.